There was a cruel custom in the neighbourhood. It was all about the trees still unsold when midnight at Christmas Eve approached. There was a saying that if you waited until then, you wouldn't have to buy a tree, that they'd chuck 'em at you. And this was literally true. At midnight, on the eve of our dear Saviour's birth, the kids gathered where there were unsold trees. The man threw each tree, in turn, starting with the biggest. Kids volunteered to stand up against the throwing. If a boy didn't fall down under the impact, the tree was his. If he fell, he forfeited his chance at winning a tree. Only the roughest boys and some of the young men elected to be hit by the big trees. The others waited shrewdly until a tree came up that they could stand against. And the littlest kids waited for the tiny, foot-high trees and shrieked in delight when they won one. On the Christmas Eve, when Francie was 10 and Neely 9, Mama consented to let them go down and have their first try for a tree. Francie had picked out a tree earlier in the day, and she had stood near it all afternoon and evening, praying that no one would buy it. To her joy, it was still there at midnight. It was the biggest tree in the neighbourhood, and its price was so high that no one could afford to buy it. It was 10 feet high, and its branches were bound with new white rope, and it came to a sure, pure point at the top. The man took this tree out first. Before Francie could speak up, a neighbourhood bully, a boy of 18 known as Punky Perkins, stepped forward and ordered the man to chuck the tree at him. The man hated the way that Punky was so confident. He looked around and asked, "Anyone else want to take a chance on it?" Francie stepped forward. Me, mister?" A spurt of derisive laughter came from the tree man. The kids snickered. A few adults, who had gathered to watch the fun, guffawed. Go on. You're too little," the tree man objected. "Me and my brother, we're not too little together." She pulled Neely forward. The man looked at them. A thin girl of 10, with starveling hollows in her cheeks, but with a chin still baby round. He looked at the little boy with his fair hair and round blue eyes. Neely Nolan, all innocence and trust. "Hey, 'two ain't fair," yelped Punky. "Shut your lousy trap," advised the man who held all the power in that hour. "These here kids has got nerve. Stand back, the rest of yous. These kids is going to have a show at this tree." The others made a wavering line. Francie and Neely stood at one end of it, and the big man with the big tree at the other. It was a human funnel, with Francie and her brother making the small end of it. The man flexed his great arms to throw the great tree. He noticed how tiny the children looked at the end of the short lane. For the split part of a moment, the tree thrower went through a kind of Gethsemane. Jesus Christ," his soul agonized. "Why don't I just give 'em the tree, say Merry Christmas and let 'em go? I mean, what's a tree to me? I can't sell it no more this year, and it won't keep till next year." The kids watched him solemnly as he stood there in his moment of thought. "But then," he rationalised, "if I did that, all the others would expect to get 'em handed to 'em, and next year nobody at all would buy a tree off me. They'd all wait to get 'em handed to 'em on a silver plate. Well, I ain't big enough man to give this tree away for nothing. No, I ain't big enough. I ain't big enough to do a thing like that. I've got to think of myself and my own kids." He finally came to his conclusion. What the hell. Them 2 kids, he's got to live in this world. They got to just get used to it. They got to learn to give and take punishment. And by Jesus, it ain't but give, but take all the time in this goddamn world. As he threw the tree with all his strength, his heart wailed out, "It's a goddamn rotten, lousy world." Francie saw the tree leave his hands. There was a split bit of being when time and space had no meaning. The whole world stood dark and still, as something dark and monstrous came through the air. The tree came towards her, blotting out all memory of her having lived. There was nothing but pungent darkness, and something that grew and grew as it rushed towards her. She staggered as the tree hit them. Neely went down to his knees, but she pulled him up fiercely before he could go down. There was a mighty swishing sound as the tree settled. Everything was dark, green and prickly. Then she felt a sharp pain at the side of her head where the trunk of the tree had hit her, and she felt Neely trembling. When some of the older boys pulled the tree away, they found Francie and her brother standing upright, hand in hand. Blood was coming from scratches on Neely's face. He looked more like a baby than ever, with his bewildered blue eyes and the fairness of his skin made more noticeable because of the clear red blood. But they were smiling. Had they not won the biggest tree in the neighbourhood? Some of the boys hollered, "Hooray!" and a few adults clapped. The tree man eulogized them by screaming, "Anna, get the hell out of here with your tree, you lousy bastards." Francie had heard swearing since she'd heard words. Obscenity and profanity had no meaning as such among these people. They were emotional expressions of inarticulate people with small vocabularies. They made a kind of dialect. The phrases could mean many things according to the expression and tone used in saying them. So now, when Francie heard themselves called lousy bastards, she smiled tremulously at the kind man. She knew what he was really saying. "Goodbye. God bless you."